I'm an insurance consumer. And so that everybody's an insurance consumer. So, we all have our own experience. And I can tell you that, the only claim I've ever had was somebody ran into my boat and the insurance company didn't do their job, right? They made the claim more painful. I had to sue the responsible party. A good neighbor would have worked with me to get the money from the responsible person. I wouldn't have had to spend money on a lawyer. They wouldn't have had to spend money on a lawyer. The guys that we went to, the responsible party, they denied liability for 2 years, which in maritime law, if a boat's tied up, not moving, and you're moving and you run into it, that's an elision. You're at fault.
So welcome back to another episode of the I Hate Insurance podcast. Say goodbye to fake coverage full of gaps, exclusions, and fine print. We're exposing the old school insurance world and providing true partnerships. Today we talk about umbrellas, what they used to be, and what they really are today. Stick around as we discuss if umbrellas really provide the coverage you think they do. So our first talking point: what's the difference between umbrellas like that came out traditionally back in the day versus today's umbrellas?
So the term umbrella pretty much says it all. If you have a homeowners and an ATV and a dog, firearm, if your primary policy excluded things, an umbrella would drop down and pick up primary coverage because your primary policy didn't cover it. They exclude it. So an umbrella would cover you $1 million over $1 million, drop down and cover the stuff excluded in a primary policy.
So like animal liability is excluded now. Back in the day, an umbrella policy would cover that.
Yeah, but the industry has gone in a direction of selling you. I met with a boat company yesterday. They have 16 different policies. Why do we always go to exclude it and issue a separate policy? Exclude it, issue a separate policy. And it's because the insurance companies don't want to take the risk of your business. So why would you buy a cheap policy from them when they really don't want to cover your business? Oh, we'll cover your hotel, your restaurants, the swimming pool, but we don't want to cover liquor, or we don't want to cover people bringing their animals there. We don't want to cover firearms. We don't want to cover assault and battery. Well, anything that your insurance doesn't pay for, you have to pay for. So insurance that gets you half of what you want isn't what you're looking for. So again, that's why my favorite question now is that, do you care? Do you actually care? No, because I'm never going to have a claim. Okay, well then let's stop wasting our time. Just go buy cheap, crappy coverage.
Basically, you're just trying to check a box for someone.
Yeah, and again, everybody thinks they're never going to have a claim. But, again, underwriting becomes the art of like a haberdasher, a suit, person who fits your suit is a haberdasher. They customize it to you. They want to make you a suit. When, insurance starts excluding stuff and having you buy a separate policy for everything, and now an umbrella is a separate policy that does you no good because it's not an umbrella. It's called following form excess. So if you have $1 million on your car, it gives you another $1 million, but it doesn't add any coverage.
They call it an umbrella.
Well, that's because it's evolved over time. And as insurance evolves, they take more stuff away from you in the way of coverage and limitations. Everybody's worried about Florida. That's obviously storms, and it's been going on for everywhere. Now it's fires in California. Well, yesterday on NPR, I heard that in the middle of the country, hailstorms and tornadoes are now the problem, and rates are going up. And you can believe whatever you want. Global warming, not global warming, doesn't matter. What I can tell you is when people's property is damaged, they need a true partner. Somebody's going to come fix it, right? A tornado is probably the most destructive thing on the planet, right? It's way worse than a hurricane because it just rips everything apart.
But it goes through a little area.
Yeah, it's a smaller path. So, these are the things insurance should handle easily, right? And tornadoes and, floods that are small, mudslides, the government never is called in because it's not politically big enough.
There's not enough people.
So, everybody in catastrophes looks to the government. And I say, when you look to the government for anything but the border and the basics they should do, you're kidding yourself, right? They're going to do all the political things to get the votes, but at the end of the day, it's the wrong solution. It just creates more trouble, and we all pay for it. Buy true insurance, right? Insurance companies should stop offering half the coverage. You know who benefits from all of this? So as the prices go up, agents and brokers, the producer side of it, who take no risk, they get richer every time the prices go up, and they have to sell you more policies to get you what you need. And then the lawyers, every time you add another policy, the big stadium we're quoting have 18 policies. So if there's a storm, there's going to be 18 adjusters show up. That's stupid. The business of insurance has evolved in a stupid way, and true umbrella is old-fashioned umbrella. We actually underwrite you if you have a firearms, if you're a security guard. The other thing about old-fashioned policies is business policies exclude everything personal. Business policy or personal policies exclude everything business. So if you're going to pick somebody up at the airport in your personal car and it's business, what do you think happens? Vice versa. The new policy should cover you as the person or you as the business and the people who work for you. Then, truckers do that. The drivers are insured, right? They're insured under the policy. They're not covered personally, but, personal policies should include your business activities because life today crosses over. Every narrow policy limitations. And so, on convective storms, hail, now they're putting limitations on those in the middle of the country. They're putting higher deductibles. They're capping the limit. If you have a $10 million building, a convective storm can have $1 million limit. So your building's gone, you're getting $1 million and you need $10 million. So that's $9 million that's going to have to come out of your pocket as the insured because you bought cheap insurance. So cheap isn't cheaper if you understand the game. If you're never going to have a claim ever in your life, cheap is probably a good deal for you. But if you're in real life, building a company, trucking company, water park, recreation, towing, repo, stuff happens. And you need a plan, one policy that covers everything, or certainly fewer policies. If we do your homeowners at $1 million limit and you want 10, I'll just issue a $10 million homeowner policy.
Well, and that's the thing, all multiple policies, like if they understand it, like I was talking to a guy a few weeks ago that is a finance manager for this guy here in Utah that has a bunch of properties and they wanted their home insured, but they have horses. I know who they are, and they have horses. He's like, oh, we don't need that covered on this property. And he's like, we have that under our umbrella. It's like, dude, you don't understand the way umbrellas work.
He doesn't.
And he's a finance dude advising these guys how to buy insurance, obviously. But yeah, he didn't think he needed it.
So every piece of paper that you get, a certificate of insurance that people rely on, right at the bottom of it, it says, do not rely on this, read your policy. So again, the fine print, and again, I talked about Louis Langlaness before. He's passed away. He was the agent in Katrina that we were a small little insurance company, wrote a lot of property in Biloxi and Mobile, and he was the smartest guy because he learned from his mistake. Right? When he was young, he sold people policies. Storm came. They didn't have flood. They thought they had flood, and it's a shit show. So as he sold policies after that, he was honest with people. He would say, look, this is what a claim looks like. And he would stamp no flood. He would stamp no flood right on the face sheet of the policy, and his son, who worked for him at the time, got mad at him because a lot of people would leave without buying the insurance. So do you want to sell somebody crappy insurance that when what can happen does happen, it feeds and grows the lawyers because you did it wrong and they're going to sue you? So he was smart enough to avoid that, right? You don't want to write people you can't make happy. And as, insurance companies call themselves good hands people and good neighbor and all the good slogans, how do they actually perform? Right? Well, I'm an insurance consumer. And so that everybody's an insurance consumer. So, we all have our own experience. And I can tell you that, the only claim I've ever had was somebody ran into my boat and the insurance company didn't do their job. Right? They made the claim more painful. I had to sue the responsible party. A good neighbor would have worked with me to get the money from the responsible person. I wouldn't have had to spend money on a lawyer. They wouldn't have had to spend money on a lawyer. The guys that we went to, the responsible party, they denied liability for 2 years, which in maritime law, if a boat's tied up, not moving, and you're moving and you run into it, that's an elision. You're at fault. So why would it take you 2 years to argue that you're not at fault and then admit you're at fault? Because everybody outsources everything. So you assign a claims adjuster, you assign a lawyer, you assign these people. They want to make money off of that assignment. They're not going to say, yeah, you're at fault, just pay it. That's the insured's job and the insurance company's job to do it without outsourcing it to somebody who has no interest. They have nothing at risk except making money providing a service. So they got a bill for 2 years. So, I took a lot of crap this week, insurance people, when I called insurance companies crooks, which a lot of times I become the insurance preacher, and what my brain is thinking comes out of my mind, right? But when you see this every day, the direction that the insurance industry is going and the way they don't pay attention, everybody's doing their job and we look stupid. We're either really stupid or we're crooks. And guess what? To me, it doesn't matter if you're really stupid or you're a crook, you're still doing a disservice to people who are paying you. You have to worry about it. It's like a good football team. The tackle knows the guard's job. The center knows the guard and the tackle's job. Everybody knows everybody's job, and you help each other. In big corporate, insurance, banking, all government, everybody does their job and doesn't give a shit. That's why this is so screwed up. So the solution is easy. Buyers, if you want to keep buying shitty, crappy, cheap insurance, you're feeding the problem, right? The insurance companies have to change too, but the buyers have to realize that there's enough money being spent. It's just going in the wrong pockets. All these people who provide services, I was talking to some of the guys here, I'm like, the insurance ship is the oldest, dumbest ship on the ocean. And it has a bunch of blood-sucking barnacles on it that provide services and make a lot of money. And the insurance companies and the insureds are unhappy. So do we need to keep hiring all these barnacles on our ship? We should clean the bottom of our ship. And the buyers need to wake up and realize that they need to change too. So the solution is really simple. But we just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Oh, no, we don't even do that. It's worse. We refine the policy. We increase deductibles, increase rates, add more fine print. So what would you call that? If it doesn't work and you're making it work less, is that helping your client, or could you be called a crook or crazy or, something? You got to label it with something. So, I'm old and I'm ornery and I'm tired of stupid people not seeing the solution, right? Everybody has a role to play in this, but without change, you're just going to keep making unhappy customers and you're going to make lawyers rich.
So anyone that has an umbrella Do you want
You don't have an umbrella.
Yeah.
You have an excess policy.
And make sure you get a policy review. We'll review it for you and tell you where you have some shortcomings in your policy.
Fewer policies. So,
is the key.
again,
That's our solution. True coverage, TRU.
Give them what they
policy.
need. Do the whole job. Like, you're pregnant. Okay, I got to do the job. It's like, oh, no, you're only half pregnant. I'm only doing half the job. You can't do half of any job, especially, insurance is way more serious than a football game. But when you're in a football game and you're in the Super Bowl, all those guys take it real serious and they all know their plan. They've practiced. We're like a professional football team. We're always on the 1 yard line. And, we win a lot with good partners because we're a team. We have a plan. We have a play. We huddle up. Or you have a policy. And then when you have a claim, they're going to go read the fine print and you're going to get a disappointing result after, somebody's billed a lot of money. They're a claims adjuster. You've waited 6 months and everybody knows it's bad news. It's coming.
So like the Brian with his policy,
Brian
Cush Cube.
Yeah.
So, he had an exclusion in his policy.
He had no coverage. It was cheap. It was $2,000
a year.
Yeah, doing millions of dollars, paying $3,000 in a business that was like liquor.
Policy. We looked at his policy and we found an endorsement,
an exclusion that gave him no coverage, and we offered him real coverage for more money. He's happy. We're happy. Nothing is excluded. There's no trickery in the policy. So, if he gets sued, we're going to be there with him to either fight and win, or if he's at fault, we're going to pay quick.
And it's one policy covering exactly what he's doing. No umbrella. It's just real coverage. So he has real coverage now. If you are in the cannabis industry, make any cannabis products, look at your policy and make sure you don't have that endorsement. It excludes any THC, anything over 0.01% THC level and any synthetic THCs. And he wanted to try and say that his synthetic THC he was using wasn't on the list on this endorsement, but it says not limited to this list. So you want to argue about that.
A person that gets assigned that claim reading it, they're reading the exclusion. Why don't people read those when you're buying the policy? Why don't they break out the fine print and say, look, this is how this is going to affect your claim. It excludes firearms. This guy came in your barbershop, shot somebody. We don't have any coverage. You got to go do your own. Right? That doesn't help people.
And that's one thing we can do is include active shooter coverage, but it is a tailored policy. We need to know it's not like our policy just includes everything. It's like going and buying a car.
Well, if you're a security guard, if you're a grocery store, if you're a restaurant, you need assault and battery and active shooter because you don't know when somebody's going to come in and get it, get a gun and shoot their wife or disgruntled. You don't know that. Those are called events that you can't control. You should be prepared for them in today's world. And as we underwrite people, we do require them to have a plan, say like an evacuation plan, an active shooter plan, a fire plan.
You have someone come in and do an active shooter plan.
Yeah. The government, Department of Homeland Security does it for free. Each state has their own department, and then there's all kinds of guys who will do it.
And they come and check it out and tell you what you should do.
Well, and there's experts all over the place you can hire. So, you have to think ahead of the ball, right? You don't sit there and not think ahead of the ball, and then what can happen does happen, and you act surprised. There's no surprises. You run a business, you have the obligation to do what is expected of you. And, that's on the active shooter stuff. People ask them, so did you know there was a Department of Homeland Security that could advise you, just like, schools with kids with earthquakes? If you sit there during an earthquake and kids get pummeled with stuff, they came up with a plan where you get under a desk, you get under a doorway. It's the same thing. It's common sense. None of this is rocket science, but you have to pay attention and you have to have a plan, and then you have to execute that plan through the litigation and all the stuff that, comes. And again, we've been doing this for 43 years. It's not like, I think we can do this, right? I think this will work. We've proven that if you make good decisions and do it right, we can solve these problems. We've done it for 10,000 people now. A lot of people, we had one insured this year, unfortunately, have an avalanche with 3 unfortunate deaths. We don't insure him anymore. I didn't know it till after the accident. I go and look. He left us for a cheaper price. So, I feel bad for him because now he's going to be abused by the old-fashioned insurance system that was cheaper, but I guarantee you it ain't better. And not only will it affect him, it'll affect everybody in the industry, because as businesses get attacked by lawyers and they come up with new ways of coming at you, they're just not targeting one guy. They're aggressive. They're ahead of the ball. They know how to grow the legal system, just like the case we just won in Alaska where a billionaire died in a helicopter crash, and the lawyers were trying to take more pasture, get more policies to pay, and that's not the law. We spent $1 million proving them wrong, and the court ordered that they have to go settle this claim. Right? If we wouldn't have spent the $1 million, we would have paid under the policy, and now every bus, every helicopter, everybody taking somebody somewhere would pay, and then the casino or the lodge would pay in addition to that. So these lawyers are out there trying to grow and cultivate the legal system and milk the insurance. And the stupider we are, the more aggressive they get and the more they succeed. So, we have to bench the lawyers. If you haven't heard me, my hashtag, my favorite one is bench the lawyers. In my boat claim, eventually I won, but I had to spend $70,000, and now I'm suing my own insurance company to make sure that they don't treat other people like that. I'll never get my money back.
Suing his neighbor.
Bad neighbors deserve to be sued. So anyway, it's a long game, and people unfortunately buy insurance like it's avocados at the grocery store, where it's not a long game. It's a daily thing you go buy and pick up, and that's not a way to buy insurance.
Unless you want it cheap. Unless
Get
you want
what you
cheap
want.
Insurance, you want a cheap cowboy hat, you go get it. The normal store.
So go back to what's our next?
Well, we kind of covered them all. Do traditional umbrellas have exclusions?
Yep. Get a custom fit umbrella that drops down and covers the stuff that your primary
that's what we
policies
can do. If you
don't.
want to buy cheap policies, we can provide an umbrella that drops down and covers stuff that your traditional umbrellas won't cover. And you can't probably find coverage for it.
You know what?
So.
I'm thinking about it. I'll quote you true coverage the right way. And if you want to be stupid and cheap, I will let you exclude all of the stuff you don't think you want.
And we'll get our big stamp out.
And I'll be cheaper, because I can be cheaper because it's fake. And then when you sue me, I'll be able to kick your ass because I offered you everything you needed and you rejected it. That's all the insurance has to do, is be honest up front.
It's just like the stamp guy,
the
flood.
Yeah.
If they don't want to buy it and they know it's on their risk, something happens, it's like, dude, you saw
every insurance professional, every finance professional that's advising people should do a mock claim. Pretend like you get sued. Pretend like your house is damaged, and read the policy and look for the things you're not covered for and that are excluded. That's what we do.
Just like the THC guy, Ryan.
Right.
Just read it.
We give you that opportunity when you're renewing your insurance. We'll do that for you with your current coverage, show you what's not covered and how a claim looks. And then we'll give you the option of buying true coverage, having a real partner, not a policy, but it's a partnership that withstands the test of having a claim. So, again, if you never have a claim, don't worry about it. But I'm old and most people eventually have claims. So there's people who have claims all the time, trucking companies, anybody who's a target of the litigation system, you better smarten up real quick.
So if you guys anyone watching wants to come on and chopper chat, or the I Hate Insurance podcast here in the office, or we do episodes where we come to certain locations, we can schedule a podcast at your office or wherever you are. But reach out to us if you want to get scheduled. We have a website we can put down in the descriptions. It's if you Google X Insurance Summits, you can go to that page and enter in for a summit where we can do a podcast, go fishing with RJ, or hang out, go UTV rides.
When your insurance renews, your homeowners or your business policy, why wouldn't you get a review and a quote to get true insurance? At least know, what a claim looks like and how it's going to feel and what you'll have to go through because you made a decision. It's choices and consequences. So, the regular insurance industry, I wish they would all get rid of deductibles, do risk share like we want to do. That's the best way to bench the lawyers is align our interests, where every claim your insurance is going to pay on, every claim you're going to pay on. So our partnership is aligned, and you pay 1%, I pay 99%. You pay 10%, we pay 90%. But you're reporting claims, you're doing it right. And then again, we want to provide the coverage because that's the way you manage the litigation to the best result. By not having true coverage, you actually expand the number of lawyers. In my boat case, we could have sued Antelope Point because they claimed the boat was too long sticking out. Well, most of the boats stick out down there out of the slip. So, but that just would have made lawyers more money. The rest of us would have got less money. So luckily, I know how the legal system works. That's what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to sue Antelope Point, bring in another party, spend a bunch, 10, I don't know. They would have spent,
hiring a lawyer.
They would have spent $50,000 on a lawyer. I spent over 70. I'm still spending money on it.
Yeah.
But that's my job, is to spend money and treat people right. I don't run away from the problem. That never helps anybody. So anyway, check us out, Chopper Chat, the insurance preacher. And
don't be trying to steal any of these terms, okay?
Yeah. We got the lawyers already protecting them, so you could try and steal them if you wanted to.
And we'll see you on the next one. If you have any questions or anything you want us to review, reach out to us, RJL at xinsurance.com or ParkerL at xinsurance.com. We'll see you on the next one, guys.
If you have ideas or questions, send them to me or Parker, and we'll try and address them on the next Chopper Chat, Insurance Preacher, or I Hate podcast.
Ideas on how we can get better, our setup here. Everyone always wants to say something, so let us know. We take it all and do what we can to get better every day. 1%.
There you go.